Hey, welcome back to Home Studio Pro. This time around, it is 5 facts about a very common piece of audio hardware. It's the Fethead from Triton Audio. There's actually 2 different flavors of the old Fethead, and that's where we will begin. This is an inline preamp. It boosts your microphone's signal before it gets to an audio interface or processing device, but you should know that there is a regular and a phantom power version variant available of the Fethead. So here is the Fethead, here is the Fethead Phantom. Now, what's the difference here? They both take phantom power. That's how they operate. Like, that is what powers them to amplify the signal. It's just that the Fethead Phantom carries through that current to the microphone if it's a condenser, if it needs to still be phantom powered. Like this one, the normal one, the regular one, perfect for a dynamic microphone which does not need phantom power. But if you needed to boost a condenser's input volume into the mixer or interface or whatever else, you would want the Fethead Phantom. Now, this is a more rare probably need. Most everybody using a dynamic, that's probably the reason that they're using an inline preamp, is because that it is a dynamic and they don't need to pass phantom power. So the regular variant works just fine. But know that there are 2, and that right there is the difference when you're boosting a signal, carrying through the phantom power or not. Okay, this, I guess, could have been fact number 1. You will get about 27 dB of very clean gain from this Triton Audio Fethead. And it's quite simple. It does the job. It does it every time. There's no buttons or switches or software or firmware. It's just this hardware. It needs phantom power. You put it in line between your mic and whatever it's going into, and it provides you with, I've measured about 27 dB of clean gain. As clean as it gets, not adding any extra hiss, low noise. This is not going to contribute to any type of problems in your signal chain. End of story. It works reliably. It does what it says it's going to do. I'm also here to say, and I have tried and bought and used the Cloudlifter before. That's another common device and cloud brand that you will hear of, but I actually prefer these Fetheads from Triton Audio for one reason. I mean, they do literally the same thing. They do it both very well at the highest of quality, but it's just design alone is why I prefer this. Think about a microphone that needs to run through an XLR cable into this, and if this were the Cloudlifter, you'd have to run another XLR out the back into whatever interface or mixer you're plugging into. Instead, with this Fethead, you can literally take it into the microphone on one side of the XLR, then the male side here can go into the female side of the Fethead, and then this right here can go straight into your mixer, your interface, or whatever. So you can essentially do with the one XLR cable that you needed, that you had, that you brought, that's fine. You don't need a second XLR cable like you do with a Cloudlifter. The Cloudlifter, because of its design and shape, it's in a box, it has no way to plug into something else, whereas this Fethead does. So again, considering that they literally do a great job at the same thing, they're not separated by much, at least not normally, from a price point. Maybe the Fethead costs a little bit more, but smaller, more versatile. You can put a ton of these in your pocket. Can't do that with the Cloudlifter. So if I have to show preference one way or the other, slight edge to the Fethead because it does that. Okay, why would you want to use an inline preamp, especially if the preamp you already have is probably just barely capable of powering your microphone? For example, the old SM7B, right? Needs a ton of gain. Don't mind that. Needs a ton of gain, close to 60 dB. And for example, like one of these DBX 286S's, they could provide, at the very top end, they can provide about 60 dB. But why would I want to crank one of these all the way up, get all the input volume out of it, when I could add a Fethead, right, to give me a little bit of juice, and then that way I don't need to crank the preamp of the DBX 286S. I have found that the higher you get to the top end of a preamp's capability, right, if it says it can give you 60, then somewhere in the 50 to 60 range is where it's going to be the noisiest. That signal noise, that hiss, that signal to noise ratio it deteriorates a little bit at the very top end. So if you use a Fethead, I mean, this is my preference, quite honestly. If I'm using the 7B into the DBX286S, I will use this Fethead into the DBX so it can boost my signal 27 dB and let the DBX do the rest, the other 25, 26, whatever dB that it takes. I'm also here to tell you that even into my Universal Audio Apollo Twin X, and I run that through processing a signal chain with obviously a preamp, but compression at the end. I still, when I connect this mic, the 7B, to the Universal Audio, I still use a Triton Fethead in line with that signal chain. So it helps balance out the gain staging so that not one of your devices needs to do all the heaviest lifting. I have found that that produces the best quality audio, best signal, probably. The most reliable signal is to boost it just a little bit here, just a little bit there, if you can, versus all in one push, cranking something to the very max. Next thing here is that this device opens up the door to, how do I put it, less stronger preamps and devices. Not everything can even honestly power the 7B. Not everything is even capable of giving you a true 60 dB of clean gain. Or if it gets to 60, like I said before, it gets messy. Some preamps and interfaces get you to 45, and that's it. That's just not enough to make a reliable recording. It's not enough power. So the thing about this is that the Fethead opens the doors to things like, and I don't mean to be derogatory here, but like a Zoom recorder. A lot of those don't have the most powerful preamps or the cleanest preamps. And so what a Fethead allows you to do is plug into a Zoom recorder and only have to crank that thing maybe 2/3 of the way, maybe halfway. You get a nice clean sound from the Zoom. You only have to put this in line, and you can use your 7B with a Zoom H6, for example. So the Fethead, while costing, around $100, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, it opens the door so that you can plug the mic you want to use into the recorder you want to use. There's virtually not going to be any more gain or input or gain staging problems if you have a Fethead. So there you go. Those are my 5 facts about the Triton Audio Fethead and the Fethead Phantom. I guess it doesn't really matter. Well, it does matter which one you're using, which one you might require, but the regular variant, the normal variant, is probably going to serve most purposes. And yeah, I totally see most people using this on a dynamic microphone, the 7B or the RE20, Rode Pod mic, things like that. The Triton Audio Fethead can definitely help you out. So thanks for being here on my channel, Home Studio Pro. Subscribe if you like this type of content. I've got lots more coming your way. Also, thumbs up on this video if it provided you some value. I'll see you next time.